Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar titled Improving Environmental Sustainability, Productivity and Efficiency, How Pigging Technology Benefits Food and Beverage Manufacturers. This webinar is part of a series supporting the Sustainable Food Factory Conference 2025, which takes place on the 11th of June at Derby Arena. And today I'm joined by Peter Elgar, Executive Chair of HPS Product Recovery Solutions, who will share his expertise and insights on this topic. I'm also pleased to let you know that the company has recently been ranked 47th on the inaugural Sunday Times 100 tech list of the UK's fastest growing private tech companies. This recognition reflects their continued innovation in liquid product recovery, helping manufacturers across many industries reduce waste, improve efficiency, and drive sustainability. So Peter, a very warm welcome, and thank you very much for giving us your time today.
Thanks, Ian. It's great to be here.
You're welcome. Before we get started, congratulations on making the Sunday Times 100 tech list. Can you tell us a bit more about it, please?
Yeah, it's great to receive, and it's a real testament to our staff, to our team. So very briefly, HPS has been around for about 30 years now, but the last few years, we got some really good people on board. We really got our house in order. We developed the technology that we've provided, and we have grown steadily, sustainably, I have to say. So, but last year was a record year for us, and the Sunday Times Award is, I think, is just recognition of that. It's recognition of our people and what they do.
What was the process like to enter and to become recognised?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward, really. That was largely figures based. I had a chat with a couple of people at the Sunday Times and almost forgot about it. And then one day I got an email saying we'd been shortlisted. And I was like, wow, fantastic. This is great. We don't enter many awards. So it's really good to be appreciated in that way.
And just in terms of pigging, for people that don't know, can you explain what pigging is and how it works, please?
Yeah, so pigging is used in a lot of industries, but in food and beverages, it's basically a method of recovering product from pipelines, and it saves companies that make food and beverages and transfer product through pipelines. It saves them tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pounds, dollars, euros every year, fundamentally by recovering product that would otherwise go to waste. It uses a special projectile called a pig. They're fully automated systems. They're very quick. The process is very quick. It happens sometimes at the push of the button. Sometimes it happens without anybody doing anything. Yeah, it's a great technology. It's been around for quite a while. However, it has advanced a lot in the last few years to what it is today, really fully automated liquid product recovery systems.
And what types of companies, food and beverage companies and F&B products benefit the most from pigging, and why would that be?
Yeah, it's a really wide range, actually. So our systems are hygienic. So and they were originally designed for food and beverage industries, food and beverage companies. But it's expanded a lot, so it covers, paint, coatings, industrial lubricants, chemicals, personal care products, household liquids, all sorts of things. But with food and beverage in particular, I don't know where to start. Hummus, sauces, dips, meat products, anything that's pumped through a pipe, really. Beverages, soft drinks, cordials, juices, right through to fine wines and spirits. They benefit most really when the longer their pipeline is, the larger the diameter of the line, because there's literally more product in it. The number of batch changeovers they do, because it will recover the product at every batch changeover. And of course, the value of the product. So generally, those things make it more worthwhile. However, we often work with companies that only do occasional changeovers, or for example, with confectionery companies, they have to get the chocolate out of the line. It's a very broad brush, and there are a lot of benefits to pigging. The main one is the waste reduction and the product recovery. That's really where the ROI is, but there are a lot of other benefits to it as well.
What other alternatives are there as opposed to pigging? some
Yeah,
degree?
we come across this quite a lot because pigging is a great technology, but it's like the top of the tree of product
Mhm.
recovery, if you like. So we get people contact us that have tried blowing product out, for example, with air or sometimes nitrogen, um, with limited success because they're only going to get 50% of the product out at the most. It's not a really great method for product recoveries. And so if you're going to blow product out, it tends to punch a hole through the middle, particularly if it's a viscous product. And then you've still got to have long rinses and sanitization processes and so on. Other times we come across people who literally break the pipeline apart at the end of the day and wash the product out, which is obviously time consuming, resource intensive. There's the hygiene issues and so on.
Mhm.
Sometimes we get, as I mentioned, there's pigging and there's pigging. So sometimes we'll get people using very basic pigging technology, which is a manual process where they'll put a pig through, and it's times have moved on, let's say, and there are much more efficient methods of pigging nowadays. And sometimes, which I really dislike, we get people saying, well, we can accept these losses, which makes me cringe because
Wow.
if I hear anybody at HPS saying, well, we can accept these losses, and these losses can be substantial in food and beverage industries. There's an orange juice company we were talking to in the States a few years ago. They were losing $180,000 worth of orange juice every quarter, and they told us they could accept these losses. Now, in the current environment, that's that's a very strange
Yeah.
attitude to have.
And are you having to do a lot of educating of like engineers and sustainability people within F&B companies?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's an interesting one. So we get inquiries from people who know all about pigging, have used our systems in the past, and they've got another line, or they just want to extend what they're doing, and so they come back for us for more systems. But we also get a lot of inquiries from people who've sort of heard of it and want to know a bit more about what it does. But I also come across a lot of people, even in the food and beverage industry, who've never heard of pigging or liquid product recovery. So, in that case, yeah, there can be some education to be done. There's also, as I mentioned, there's different types of systems. So there's pigging. The older systems sometimes have got a bad name because the principle of pigging, putting a projectile down a pipeline to push all the product out, is very simple, very straightforward. What could be easy? However, um, I've had some companies will get their own engineers to try and design a pigging system. They'll go out, they'll buy some components, they'll buy a pig off another provider, and it won't work because there's a lot to take into account. There's the process, there's the procedures, there's tolerances of the pigs, there's all sorts of things, and particularly safety. So you need interlocks, you need depressurization routines, you need the software program properly. There's all sorts of safety features you need as well. And if you don't get the pressure ratings right, for example, you can have serious problems. So sometimes pigging has got a bad name, which is a shame for all involved because done properly, pigging is an extremely effective technology that saves companies a lot of money and significantly improves their sustainability.
Okay, so essentially the worst case, the pig could get stuck within the production line, for example. That's what you're talking about.
That can happen, but that rarely happens. Now, the pigs themselves can be quite heavy, and it's a very, very quick process. People don't realize how a lot of the time people don't realize how quickly the pig moves. Sometimes our engineers have to slow it in.
Yeah.
So you've got a pressurized projectile moving at high
Mhm.
speed. If you
Mhm.
don't have the proper safety procedures, interlocks in place, depressurization routines, and so on, I've heard horror stories of people who've made their own systems and pipelines have literally blown apart. I've heard stories of people using pigs with magnets inside. We won't provide pigs with magnets inside because I believe they're dangerous. We've heard of stories of the magnets coming out of the pig, shattering in the line, contaminating the product, and even worse, sometimes um, blasting through the pipeline and flying across the factory floor, which is lethal. Now, I don't want to put people off. Look,
Yeah.
pigging is very,
Yeah.
very safe if it's
Yeah.
done properly.
Yeah. Just go to an expert. Go to an expert provider,
Absolutely.
essentially.
Yeah,
Essentially.
absolutely.
And just to move on, have you seen any change in emphasis on sustainability from your clients over the years? And if so, what's driving that change in the sustainability conversation, Peter?
Yeah, I have a lot. So when I first started at HBS about 10 years ago, all our inquiries, all the companies we work with in food and beverage in particular, it was all about the sort of profitability, the efficiency gains, the increased yields, the increased capacity, the faster changeovers and so on. Now, of course, they're still very important, but I'm getting more and more inquiries from people, for example, with the word environmental or sustainability in their job title.
Mm.
Because of the sustainability, and particularly with the bigger companies, you can't just walk the walk, talk the talk anymore. You have to walk the walk. You have to show tangible gains in what you're doing and that your production process is sustainable and good for the environment. Sometimes it's because, the marketing department has decreed that, they want to see their product as green, so they've got to take some sustainability measures, and obviously pigging helps that in a big way. Other companies have really ambitious targets, so they want to reduce water. A lot of companies we work with want to reduce water down to literally zero within the next 5 or 10 years, which is a very ambitious target indeed. But pigging helps save water, so it makes sense for them to talk to us. And then there's the carbon footprint reduction. There's a whole list of reasons why companies contact us from the sustainability point of view. But to go back to your original question, yes, it's getting more and more common that sustainability is a key factor in why people are looking for pigging technology or looking at pigging technology.
I suppose ultimately the kind of sustainability question cuts right across the company, doesn't it? From the top down and from the down up, and right across to get everybody to buy into it, haven't you? Including HR, etc.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with the larger companies we work with, it's part of their corporate policy now that sustainability is involved. I mean, on a personal level, with us, particularly in the last sort of 5 years, it's helped us recruit. I won't say necessarily the younger demographic, but generally it's helped us recruit because people, obviously, salary, job, working conditions, and so on important. But our product is sustainable, and that helps sustainability. It improves the environment, and that attracts a lot of the candidates we talk to when we're recruiting, particularly the newer engineers and so on. It's a big tick in the box for them. So yeah, it does cut across right through the company. Yeah.
So you're seeing the people that are coming to work for you or you're interviewing actually ask about your sort of sustainability policies and views.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Particularly when we talk about the product, and some have applied when we have when we're recruiting. Some have applied for our roles because they've seen the sustainability aspect of what we do, and that's a big advantage to us. And personally, I feel it's a great product to work with because yes, it helps companies become more efficient and profitable, but it's also helping the environment at the same time. Everything from saving water to reducing effluent that's going in the drains or tankers that are on the road transporting the stuff. It's a great product to work with, and it feels good to work with a product that's actually making a difference in that respect.
I know you talked about there are companies that are happy to swallow the losses or swallow the lack of productivity, and you mentioned that obviously it can save the use of water, etc. But are there any specific aspects of sustainability that your clients tend to focus on more than others, or is it more general than that?
I'd say it's across the board. So a few years ago, we've always said that our products reduce carbon dioxide, reduce carbon footprint, but we didn't have any proof of that. So we actually got an independent consultancy in and said, can you give us a report to look at whether our products actually do save carbon dioxide. And it was great because they grilled us about how we manufacture our products, how we implement them. They grilled our suppliers and found out what our components were made out of and so on, and how they're transported. They spoke to our clients, our end users. They actually used the paint company as an example. And the report was fantastic. It basically concluded that our product saves a significant amount of carbon dioxide equivalent every day, every year, every product changeover, which is great to hear. So that's one aspect of it. But yeah, there are a lot of reasons. There's the water use, as I mentioned. We have an office in Australia, and that was originally started quite a few years back now, because Australia is obviously a water critical area. They have plenty of droughts, and they also have a big wine industry, which uses a lot of water. So our product is great for use with wine, but it also saves the wine industry a lot of water as well. Energy reduction is another thing because it makes the process more efficient, more cheaper. It saves energy, it also saves a bit of labor. A big one is effluent. I always just say the best thing to do with effluent is not to create it in the first place, because if you do create effluent, you've got to do stuff with it. You've got to treat it, you've got to transport it, you've got to store it, you've got to get rid of it, and you can't just put it down the drain. And generally improving green credentials as well. So we have the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions. They seem to be the flavour of the month at the moment. So yeah, to answer your question, there's a broad region, a broad variation on why companies contact us from a sustainability point of view.
And just to you talk about the conference in June, you kindly sponsored and exhibited at the first Sustainable Food Factory conference last year, and thank you for returning in this coming June. I just wondered if you could tell our audience, what they can expect to gain from attending the event, and how you felt it was overall as a forum for discussing sustainability within the industry.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I find events a bit hit and miss these days. I don't attend that many, if I'm honest, or as a company, we don't attend that many. But this was just the right size for us. So it wasn't too big, so it was overwhelming, but then it was big enough that we met some great people. We had some really good conversations. I think what really stood out to me was the atmosphere. It had a really good atmosphere. People were friendly. We were chatting. There was nobody like sitting in the corner, or there was nobody that I came across who just wanted to get in, see the presentations and get out again. Everybody was talking to each other. I learned a lot. The presentations were good as well. I really enjoyed it. It's a worthwhile day out, I would say.
I suppose it also helps you from an educational perspective, doesn't it? It keeps your thinking in line with the industries, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, so I spoke with a lot of companies in food and beverage, of course, but also other companies that serve the food and beverage industry like we do, with sometimes with complementary products. Other times we just had some really interesting conversations. I remember talking to one guy about energy saving technology and all sorts of things. Yeah, it's a pretty it's a relaxed day, but at the same time, I got a lot out of it. So yeah, it was time well spent.
Well, thank you, Peter, for sharing how pigging technology can help food and beverage manufacturers improve sustainability and enhance their environmental credentials. And as I mentioned at the start, this year's Sustainable Food Conference will take place on the 11th of June at Derby Arena. The event is free to attend for food and beverage manufacturers, and you'll gain invaluable insights from our expert speakers on how to create more sustainable operations. And of course, you're able to meet Peter and the HPS team in the day, along with our other exhibitors who will be able to share their insights and expertise. We look forward to seeing you on the 11th of June at Derby Arena, and thanks for taking the time to watch today's webinar. Thank you.